Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Build Show with JP. I'm JP, and it's my privilege to come to you transforming lives one guest at a time by having amazing guests, and today is no different. We have Dominic Lambrinos, and Dominic actually is the founder and CEO of Chifley Securities, which is a private commercial lending property company that they compete with major banks. We'll talk about that today. He started his career as a trainee, as a chartered accountant, and he actually from that time went on to own multiple businesses, including some hotels. He's traveled extensively in Asia and has actually spent some time in Siberia, avoiding the salt mines. We'll talk about that. And he's known as a legend in the industry of finance within Australia. But he's going to share with us today not only his knowledge of the industry of finance, but all of the knowledge he's gained over his career spanning over 40 years. I'm so excited. Dominic, thank you so much for joining us on The Build Show.
Thank you so much, JP. Thank you. I'm very privileged that you've asked me to come on your show. You know, this is not a forum I'm particularly used to. I've done some public speaking.
Sure.
So I'm very curious how this whole thing will work today. So
yeah.
I'm really pleased to participate in it.
Well, it's
thank
our
you so
honor
much.
and privilege to have you. So thank you for coming. And we're just going to have a conversation show, starting with what you're excited about. What are you excited about right now?
Well, I guess as I come to that answer, I was going to say that like life started at 17 when I finished high school.
Right.
I wanted to get out of my situation at home, and I got myself a job working for a firm of chartered accountants, a cadetship.
Right.
They don't call that anymore, but that's what they used to call it. And of course that was 40 years ago, which now you can work out how old I am.
Doing the math.
That's right. So 57 today. I was actually one of the youngest chartered accountants in Australia, and then it progressed to be a partner in the firm of accountants. With a family failure, I decided to stop that, and I wanted to stop working with in professional services, and that's where the pub started.
Gotcha.
And
Do you still have the pub?
No.
Oh, I thought we could go get a pint after this. We still can, just not at your pub, right?
Schooner.
That's right. There you go.
So we ended up, and then underlying that time in the pubs, I developed a finance business, which is where I am today. So it's Chifley.
Right.
Chifley, you know, just to give you an idea, receives over $7 billion of applications a year.
Right.
So it's quite big, you know, for a private, you know, three of us own it.
Right.
Banks have stopped lending for a lot of commercial purposes.
Right.
They have to be a bit more conservative in some ways, and we can be more entrepreneurial
Right.
in our approach. So that's allowed us to grow quite a bit.
I know, because it's very impressive, because it's what I call, and a lot of people call it real money, because I know we were talking in the prep about, you know, investment. I was like, oh, I can, you know, throw somebody. So actually, the minimum buy-in is what, $50 million?
$50 million deposit.
I then opted out immediately and said, I won't be investing. Not now, maybe someday, right?
Hey, well, we'll look after you.
Exactly, right. So
all that 40 years of experience, I've actually written some courses.
Right.
Which helps, you know, originally it was helping other brokers and finance brokers and financiers to learn what I've learned.
Right.
But business people pick up that course, and so do you know, real estate agents. So what I'm excited about is seeing the experience, the knowledge, and a little bit of the gut feel being now passed on to another generation.
That's great. It's like leaving that legacy. Well, at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? Like surviving you. Not that you're going out anywhere. So, but I think of that in talking to people and talking about, well, what really matters is what the next generation is gathering from your insights and understandings and knowledge, especially in thought leadership, which clearly you're in, as well as finance. So, as you know, we kind of walk through the BUILD framework. For those of you who still don't know what BUILD stands for, and there's a couple of you, I'm sure. B is for build relationships. U is for understand the business. I is for implement strategies. L is for lead and inspire. And D is for deliver excellence. And what I love about this show is that we get to have amazing guests like Dominic here, and they talk us through how BUILD has impacted their lives. So let's start with B and building relationships, and talk about maybe some of the most key relationships that you've had in your life and career.
I've thought a lot about this, and lots of relationships in my life.
Yeah.
But I guess people talk about personal as distinct to business. But in my life, the circle for business and the circle for business and for personal interact. Yeah. So it's a large overlap for me.
Right.
And it continues, like people from one go to the other and from the other go to business and personal. So probably a very special, very sensitive time in my life is when I got divorced. And like for most people, it's a very dark period.
I can relate.
Yeah. Had a couple of young kids, 5 and 3 at the time.
Yep.
Who are now 28 and 25.
Like that.
Like that. Like that. And so so I was a better father, and I spent a lot of time looking after them. In fact, I was a better father once I was divorced.
Right.
But it was dark, so I left my practice. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And a very good friend of mine in my personal relationship circle came to me and says, "You've got to get out of this." And I said, let's do something. He knows I like doing things, and he said, let's go and buy some pubs. That's how it started.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. And so let's have some fun. Let's have a few
That's
drinks, then some entertainment. And he lived in a part of Sydney where, like Liverpool.
Right.
So it's not particularly salubrious, you know. But it was great to live in that area in that time, because everybody seemed to have the feet on the ground, which is what I was looking for.
Right.
Away from the city and the suits and all that stuff
yep.
at the time. So he actually I didn't have any money because after a divorce.
Yep.
And I agreed to give my wife all the money because that was the best thing to do at the time, and to keep the kids status quo, maintain that. So he said, "Don't worry." He said, "Don't worry, I'll spot you for 10%.
Right.
All you need to do is just make sure all the back office works."
Right.
And I said, "Fine, I could do that, you know." So that 10%, we bought a pub for about 3.2 million on his back, not mine.
Right.
He gave me 10%, and we sold it for 5 million.
Right.
A couple of years later, and I invested that in the next hotel. So now I had 20%.
Right.
So it was he and his brother and I. After the third hotel, I had 30%.
Right.
Now, that relationship,
Led to all of that.
and it was not just someone putting their hand in the well and pulling me out of the darkness, but actually just throwing me up in the air and giving me an opportunity.
Right.
So relationships, that's all that counts.
It is. Write that down, guys. That's why B is the first thing in the build framework, because everything is built upon the foundation of relationships.
Yeah.
Which leads us to you, obviously, understand the business. So what, with those relationships and other understandings, and what's an understanding of the business that you've come to realize that would be interesting to share to our listeners today?
For my sort of look on businesses, what I was good at was actually to see the end in sight. So if you say, "Dom, let's go and open up a hotel," and I'd see the hotel finished, and then we just set up all the steps: marketing, compliance, legal.
Do you see selling the hotel 5 years later too? Sometimes.
Sometimes.
That's the real end in sight.
Or creating value.
Yeah.
Right. So in my time when I had these hotels, we financed them using some of my clients when I was a chartered accountant. Don't forget, this was a period.
Relationships. Bingo.
More relationships, right? And these are really high net worth guys. And it was very funny because I had a very large Jewish, wealthy group of clients.
Yep.
And they wanted to use a Catholic because they didn't want people in the Jewish community to know how much money they were making.
Sure.
So I used their money to finance our hotel. It was a little bit more money in cost,
right?
But it was an easier lend.
Right.
Especially
which is worth something, actually.
It's worth a lot, especially when you didn't have the experience and haven't owned one before. So anyway, we did that. Other brokers who were selling the hotels saw what I was doing, and they would start recommending to their clients to come and see me.
Right.
And then of course, it wasn't just pubs; it was buildings and shopping centres and office blocks and commercial spaces. I was using private money.
Right.
Rich people's money.
Yep.
And parking into mortgage investments.
Right.
So in this case, the rich lender was happy. It was getting a better rate.
Sure.
The borrower's happy.
They get the money.
They get the money to do something with it.
Right.
And I got paid for it.
Yeah.
It was one of those few times in my life I was actually getting win-win-win.
It is a win-win-win.
Yeah, unlikely most times. And so with that particular scenario, I was owning the pubs, and I was coming home at night and just, on my dining table, making this sort of extra income. And for me, it was easy because I had sort of the chartered accounting background, so numbers and money all came natural. After a while, I had a staff member, and then the dining table moved to an office.
Right. Now it's a high rise? No, I don't know.
And that became a business which was called EasyBiz Finance, and I sold that. They had $1 billion worth of loans a year.
Say that again, $1 billion of loans a year, right?
So I know these all sound like telephone numbers, right?
Right.
They do, don't they? But if I can just sort of take an aside, which I think is very interesting.
Do.
If you count 1 million seconds, 24/7,
right?
1 million seconds takes you 11 days, right? Non-stop.
Got it.
Now, if you want to count 1 billion seconds, non-stop, takes you 34.5 years. It's all the way out there. That's much bigger 1 billion is to 1 million.
Right.
So in that context, you can actually see when someone says 1 billion,
it's not just the next million. Exactly.
Million.
That's why I had you repeat it, because I want our listeners to understand you're not talking millions, you're talking billions.
Billions,
and the scope and size of that.
So I sold that to a Chinese finance group and had a bit of a break, which is when I started first running my courses.
Right.
And of course now they're in a video format.
Right.
So it's easier for people to access. And then started with some very exciting guys, Chifley Securities.
Right.
So my to me, is that when you have your end in sight, it may not always be the end in sight, because there's always something else going. It's like a dominoes.
Yep.
You started and say, oh, that was a great show, and
right.
you turn around, it's still going.
Yeah.
And as it is in my life, it's still going.
Right.
And Chifley Securities is not the end as well, because I can see other opportunities coming out of it.
Right.
So you just have to decide when you want to stop. I haven't decided that yet.
Right. Exactly.
So that's my understanding, is to say that if your end in sight, look for the fact that it may not be the end in sight. There's other opportunities that come out of that as well.
And in a way, go with the flow, but still have an idea, but just also be able to have flexibility is what
Have your direction.
Right.
Always.
Right.
But look for the opportunities which also come out of that as well.
Absolutely, because if you're blinded on the end in sight, you'll miss maybe opportunities that are actually better than that end that you initially looked at.
True.
Right.
True.
How about implementing strategies then? What's your eye? What's one of the best strategies you've implemented that you think will be useful for our listeners?
I thought a lot about this, and I just can't tell. I mean, my strategy is boring.
Maybe not. If it brings us to $1 billion, I think we're all ears.
So, for me, my strategy is systems. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I can be, I guess, a fault of mine is micromanagement.
Okay.
All right. So that I want everything done my way.
Because it's the right way. I mean,
it is
obviously.
It is the only right way.
Right, exactly. What's wrong with that?
So picking that up, and also seriously listening to other people, and having a system where you can actually evolve.
Yeah.
So in our particular business in Chifley Securities, we actually we don't have a huge amount of staff, right? But every process, every step is controlled. So the letters that have to be prepared are all written for people.
Right.
And they're all, so it doesn't matter where one particular loan is in the process, it has to create certain documentation.
Sure.
By having systems, you take away the micromanagement that you're doing. Systems doing the micromanagement.
Right.
Okay. You're maintaining a quality control.
Yep.
So in my industry, quality control risks legal issues.
Yeah. Well, something falls through the cracks. I mean, that could be
in court.
$1 million or $1 billion mistake.
Yeah, you're in court. You
Right.
know, and so it's so very important to maintain that quality control, and to actually then make sure that all the people that work with you, right, can actually apply the system without a great burden. So in our system, we've got this computer.
Right.
We call it Bruce.
Of course you do.
We call it Bruce. And Bruce will tell you what to do with this particular loan that you're working on, and then that next person what they got to do, and then all at different times. Prepares the letters as an email,
Right.
puts it into your drafts,
Right.
and you just have to check it and send it.
So it's still the human intervention at the end, checking it, tweaking it if they need to, and pushing send, but everything up to that point is handled by Bruce.
Okay, so that he does the micromanagement,
Right.
but the quality control is there. So once you've got your systems in place, once you've got them all, so knowing your systems,
Yep.
putting them into a system so everybody can use them, then you can just multiply it out
Scalable.
totally.
Right.
So a lot of people...
As long as Bruce has the capacity, but Bruce sounds like he has a lot of capacity.
just
Just add more RAM, right?
have to hit the computer.
Exactly.
No, we don't hit
Yeah,
computers. So we...
It's scalable.
It's scalable. And so we can go... So when we started this, we over-invested in the system.
Right.
Right? So people say, why are you doing all this, you know?
But you knew.
I knew.
It's the foundation.
That's right.
It might be overkill for now, but it then is able to withstand the test
And the
of time.
system is also part of the training ground.
Awesome.
Okay, so people come in from a bank
Yep.
and they say, oh, you can't do this loan, Dominic. There's no way you can do this. I said, we can do it every day, you know.
Because they're used to their regulations, which don't apply to you.
So we take them through the bottom and say, this is how you've got to do it. Take it step by step and start with A. When you finish with Z, you've got a loan and you've got your commission.
And you get Bruce to help you along the way.
All the way.
Right.
That's right. That's true. It's
Awesome.
true. So my I is systemization.
Yep.
Invest in it early.
Yep. And go big.
And go. No point otherwise.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. Which leads us to L, right? So lead and inspire. So how do you lead and inspire in everything that you do?
Well, for me, I found education, all those years of experience,
Yeah.
not just technical education, but also the streetwiseness
Yeah.
is probably sometimes
Probably more important. The EQ, right? Not the IQ.
That's
right?
true.
Yeah.
So
Emotional intelligence.
think of it in our business, and it might become a bit of a surprise, but there's a lot of people who misrepresent their loans, create frauds,
Right,
in
sure.
order to get an advantage.
Sure.
So you can do all the checks you like, but you might just miss that point. You know. So I'll give you an example, which is we had a guy come in and representing to be John Smith.
Okay.
And his license said John Smith. His license didn't have the hologram.
Yep. Flag number one.
So the way you're going to pick that is by being streetwise,
Yeah.
right? Because there's no quality control that says make sure that the
Bruce doesn't handle that part.
no. So the way I inspire is by educating, and by educating by growing, and then sort of the other side is believe. Now, if I'm educating, say you, then I would also educate you, and then in that process believe in you.
Right.
So you're absorbing information, you're applying it, and if I'm believing in you, the last thing you want to do is let me down.
Right.
And that is what my boss did to me when I was 17, 18.
Right.
He believed in me. He educated me. And it's worked for me for 40 years, right?
Right.
And it worked on me. My boss, when I was 17, I still see today, and we have lunch 40 years later. My first boss.
Do you pay for lunch now? It depends, probably, right?
I always pay for lunch.
I always pay for lunch. Good to know. We should go to lunch.
We can have lunch.
Great. So L is really about education and belief and supporting.
For me, it is, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
And
amazing.
growing that person.
Right.
you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
so-
you're creating the next level of leaders, right? You're the next generation when you do that, and hopefully they do that as well, and it just continues to evolve.
See, my courses at the moment is also another place where I like to lead, because that sort of is an extension of the education.
Sure.
And that's giving a lot of, say, people who want to learn about this industry, or generally, if you're in business, people suffer cash flow problems every now and again. It's natural. I do too.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it'd be nice to know, one, to predict them, and two, to make sure you just smooth over them.
Exactly.
Better sleep.
Right. Less stress.
Less stress.
Right.
So the courses also apply to business people, as well as to financiers, as well as to, say, real estate agents. And I feel like I'm inspiring these people by giving them all this knowledge.
Right.
And they're picking that up to to do better work, better business,
Right.
and understanding a better way of doing business.
Right.
The other side to it is these courses, I've only done 4 of them, right?
Right.
But now I've been approached by other people who, like, for example, my catchphrase is, how do I understand financial statements in a day? That's one of the courses.
Right, okay.
Which is important.
Yeah.
So you can learn how to do financial statements, you learn them, but so what? If I can teach you how to make money out of reading financial
That's what people want to know, the so
right.
what factor,
Yeah,
right?
how to make money out of it.
P&L is fine, but how can I turn that into profit? Right, exactly.
More profit,
Right, exactly.
So that's what it teaches you,
Yeah.
And so now we're getting people say like marketing, I'm not a marketing expert, but they are, and but they want to, impart their knowledge. They've been doing it for 30, as a girl who's been doing it for 35 years, who works with me, she says, I want to do this.
Yeah.
So now she's inspired to writing the course, how to understand marketing in a day. So it's from both ways. And I find that's a great medium to do that, those INIC courses.
Yeah, and you're leading others to lead as well, right?
Yeah.
Which leads us to delivering excellence. So what is your word of wisdom in regards to delivering excellence? Yes.
Well, I guess people sort of expect sort of business excellence, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be both. After 40 years, it's business and personal excellence. It can't be just one, So in our game, unfortunately, there's been a lot of bad operators.
Right.
Like previous,
There's some movies about that, right?
like a wolf or something.
Yeah, wolf, some Wall Street wolf thing. I mean, it's
That's right. So, or billions.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad behaviour.
That's a whole series, right?
That's
Not just a movie.
bad behaviour.
Yeah.
So before it was used car salesmen,
Yeah.
mortgage brokers today.
Right, gotcha.
And there's a lot of money to be made in this business. And if you're don't have your feet on the ground, greed and bad behaviour and terrible self-interests all get mushed up.
And that's that personal side, making sure that that's part of the business. Is that, or no?
No, for us, the business side
Right, gotcha.
is this side to make sure that we work with integrity.
Got it.
Right, so that word, I know it's overused,
Yep.
right? But just doing the right thing, even if it hurts us financially,
Yep.
right? Or it puts us in a weaker place, do it
In the long term, much more
much
worth
more.
it. Right.
And we're in the paper all the time, so we're more prominent. So I write for the Sydney Morning Herald, for the Australian Financial Review. We were in the Fin Review twice last month.
Right.
So we don't want to be caught in that sort of bad end of town, right? So we're more sort of in the integrity, but integrity is where you get excellence, I think.
Absolutely.
Personal integrity is where I think, I've been blessed with certain attributes and opportunities,
Right.
and in those opportunities, I've found that how can I say, they're not. I look after my family, my 2 boys, my wife, our bull terrier.
Yeah. Important. In that order.
No, the dog comes first.
That's right.
So in that respect, it's important to take those attributes and give it to people in the community that don't have it.
Right. To give back.
That's where the excellence comes from. Right. So
Right.
So for instance, we now Chifley is one of the top 3 national corporate partners of Camp Quality.
Right.
So Camp Quality looks after children with cancer, terminal, and looks after children whose brothers and sisters have got cancer,
Right.
or children whose parents have got cancer.
Right.
So it's all about. I'm hopeless, right? I go to the hospital. I'm in tears. I'm terrible.
Right.
I'm terrible. They don't want me in the hospital.
Right.
It's all about kids being happy.
Right.
And terminal, chemo, radiotherapy,
Right.
still laughing, wanting to play. And these kids have all got adults around them.
Yeah.
So Camp Quality brings children back to children and
Yeah.
bring plays and puppets and shows and all around for all the hospitals and take the kids that can go into camps where they can just be kids. That's where the excellence lies.
Yeah, that is. If that's not delivering excellence, I don't know what is.
That's where it is, yeah.
Right. Very inspiring. How about finally, from a standpoint of the questions, we ask this kind of words of wisdom, right? Or something that you've heard throughout your life that's that one quote or that one thing that you really think our listeners would resonate with that can help them succeed.
Okay, there's a few, but
Okay.
one.
Your favorite.
My favourite. Look, you've heard of people say, I'm lucky, or other people say, I'm not lucky, you know,
Right, yeah.
all the time.
I hear it all the time.
All the time. And always, you look at the lucky people, always get luckier.
Right.
Because they're always looking around for that $5 note on the street.
Yep.
You know what I'm getting at, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, so, you know, approach your business life in a positive. Even if things might be a little bit difficult, cash flow might be bad, be positive about it. Change your attitude. Be happy. Make a joke out of something,
Right.
you know?
Laughter.
No, I always tell people, you know, like I'm a bit old now, as you know, right? So I'm trying to get
I'm right there with you, by the way.
I'm trying to get used to the cloud, right?
Right,
Okay?
yeah.
And apparently everything is in the cloud,
Right.
except for my creditors. They're still on the ground with me.
Exactly.
Go up.
Get you in the cloud. Right.
So be positive, have a laugh. You know, it's a happy life, you know?
Right.
No one wants you to have a bad time here. Look for those opportunities. Be open. Feel lucky. More opportunities come, the luckier you get.
Great.
That's my closure, if you like.
Well, that's amazing closure. and before we close completely, how can people get a hold of you to find out more about all you can offer them and things you can do for them?
Look, you can get a hold of me. Probably the easiest email address
Right.
is through the course,
Okay.
right, which is not Chifley Securities.
Okay.
Right, so you can have Dominic, DOMINICL, at Chifley Securities, CHIFLEY, securities plural.com.au, or Dom at Inic, Dominic.
Right. Oh, Don at
Inic,
right.
Dom at
Inic. Clever.
.com.au.
Right.
Yeah,
Great.
Can't to be too serious about things.
Exactly. Well, they can laugh while they're sending you an email.
That's
which is
right.
Great. So you've left us all lighter and happier. So I appreciate that. I hope you guys took notes. I hope you wrote a lot of those insights down. I think they really, truly will be transformational for our listeners. So thank you
you.
so much for
My pleasure,
being on the
Chifley.
show.
What
It's
a great
been an honor to
experience.
have you here and to meet you in person.
Thank you, sir.
That's it for this episode, and we'll see you next time on The Build Show. You've been a pleasure to be here on the show with me. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time on The Build Show.